About 2 hours northeast of Warsaw.
The main thing I wanted to share with you here is a picture of what Jewish life was like in a small town.
Not far from what is now Poland's border with Belarus.
This was the Jewish part of town. And every house here that you see existed prior to the war.
Sits a small, picturesque community named Tykocin.
There are no Jews left here today. At the beginning of the war, there were about 2,000 Jews.
Rabbi Fred Gutman took us inside the synagogue there, which dates back to the 1600s.
You can see certain things that are rather unusual. The thing that strikes you at first is the writing on the walls.
It's now a museum, but was once the heartbeat of the small yet vibrant Jewish community.
So I want everybody just to come here and let's make a circle for just a second.
A center of life and celebration. The perfect place, he told us, to sing a traditional Jewish melody. A place once full of so much joy, still heard in the echoes off the walls, forever stained with heartache.
Tanz mit Malachim. We just danced with angels. Isn't that amazing?
We learned this synagogue was abandoned by its congregants on August 26, 1941, but not by choice. That's the day the Nazis' Einsatzgruppen, a mobile killing unit, forced the town's Jewish people here to the Lupachova forest about 5 miles outside Tykocin. As we walked deeper into the forest, just as they did all those years ago, I couldn't help but think their fate must have become more clear with every step they took.
I can't imagine walking that way with my children or with my grandchildren. I can't imagine the contrast between the beauty of the forest and the sounds of the gunfire. I can't imagine what I would do to hide the vision of my children. I can't imagine what I would say to them. I can't imagine how I would hold them and how I would hug them.
Over the course of 2 days in August 1941, 1,400 Jews, including children, were ordered to stand at one of 3 pits and shot. This is known as the Holocaust by bullets.
There's 2 million Jews that died this way, and yet everybody knows about Auschwitz. And everybody knows about death camps, but this is far bigger than Auschwitz. And this is all over Europe.
More than 80 years later, the sadness in this forest is still so present. Teachers, on a quest for knowledge and understanding, quietly paid their respects, including Andrew Voss of Chestnut Grove Middle School in Stokes County.
Seeing it with your own eyes is a very different thing. Hearing the sounds of nature in these places of such tragedy, but sensing such beauty that is, and so much life that has returned to those areas. It puts you in such a very strange place, and you don't really know how to feel.
Small stones pepper the mass graves, a Jewish custom we learned, honoring the deceased.
Never say that there is only death for you.
And perhaps a quiet promise to those murdered here.
Because the hour we have hungered for is near.
They won't be forgotten.
Tremble, we are here. Because the hour that we have hungered for is near. Beneath our tread the earth shall tremble, we are here.
A little more than 3 miles away from a quiet Polish village sits one of the most notorious killing centers, Treblinka. Nazis murdered nearly 1 million Jews, Poles, and Soviet POWs in this place. The Nazis dismantled and destroyed much of the camp after a prisoner revolt in late 1943. They tried to make it look like a normal farm, but it didn't work. While the buildings and gas chambers may be gone, you can still feel and imagine what took place in this field. Tucked away, deep in a forest of mature pine trees, sits an open field covered in tall grass, wildflowers, and large rocks. There's a stillness here, a haunting beauty.
Treblinka is interesting in the fact that there's not a whole lot there.
Andrew Voss teaches history at Chestnut Grove Middle School in Stokes County. Being at the site of Treblinka was tough.
There's a heaviness to that field, to know that roughly 900,000 people on a 40-acre plot were systematically eliminated, lives snuffed out, futures. It's really hard to take in that such terrible things can not only be done, but be done in just a little small space.
Between July 1942 and October 1943, Treblinka functioned as a killing center.
On every day except Monday, beginning in 1942, a train would arrive down here, which makes this look like tracks. These are not obviously train tracks. And right behind here, there was a train station. And on the train station in seasons like now, there were pots of flowers. It looked nice. There were signs, tickets to the west, tickets to the east, everything to create an illusion that things were okay.
But in reality, Jews deported here, thousands every day, were shaved, stripped, and murdered within an hour of arriving. An assembly line of death, Rabbi Fred Gutman explained to us.
The building had 5 gas chambers on each side. Can you imagine that? 5 and then 5 and a hall in the middle. And on the outside of each gas chamber, there was a box with a captured Russian tank engine.
Killed by carbon monoxide.
Each chamber was approximately 25 meters square and about 6 feet 2 inches high. There were fake showers and tiles, and 400 to 500 of us would be crammed into that gas chamber. It was so crowded that some of the times people just died standing up. When the gas started, people got sick, they threw up, they lost control of their bowels, urinated. And when it was all over, there was just this mass of 400 to 500 bodies pressed against each other.
As we quietly reflected and made our way around the field, we met Hetty Chandler from Canada, traveling with another group of teachers.
So just that people can't be indifferent. And that's what happened here. Many people were indifferent. People say they didn't know. People knew what was happening. And indifference is probably the worst thing for anybody to be a bystander. We have to stand up to bullies.
She told me she's here in honor of her 96-year-old father, Howard. He's an Auschwitz survivor, but lost his mother, sister, and brother here at Treblinka. Hetty led us to the rock that has her father's hometown inscribed on it, a community that lost thousands of its residents to Treblinka. She lit a candle, and Rabbi Gutman recited the Kaddish, a Jewish prayer of mourning.
What is it like being here in the place where they lost their lives?
It's harder for me as a second generation to understand it, but my father has stood here every year for the last 14 years telling everybody, it's not a story, but his story of what he encountered and how loss affected him. And this is the hardest place for him to come. It just looks like a hallowed site. Flowers are growing, butterflies are flying. Doesn't make sense.
And as life somehow returns to the site where 900,000 Jews were murdered, the rocks tell a story of those we must not forget.
And it carries its own weight in wanting to make sure that I'm doing not just my part, but enough. I know that I can do a lot, but what will I walk away from, not just this, but the end of my own life, and feel like, and be able to look back and reflect and say, did I do enough? Could I have done more? I'll be struggling with that for a while, I know, but it starts with small steps.
They are reminders, says Andrew, of the responsibility that lies ahead.
Stand there, remember these people and their lives, with all these other educators, knowing that, like the rabbi's message to us is, we have the ability to carry that hope and message to our students, affect the lives of hundreds every single year, tens of thousands in a career. One educator can touch so many lives. One individual standing up against hate can stop it.
During our time in Poland, we visited 3 of the 6 Nazi death camps: Auschwitz-Birkenau, which is considered one, Treblinka, and Majdanek. There's nothing left at Treblinka, and a lot of Auschwitz-Birkenau was destroyed to hide evidence of what happened there. But Majdanek is different. It was the first to be liberated on July 22, 1944, so the Nazis were caught off guard, and a lot of what we saw this summer is exactly as it was during the Holocaust. It's become a museum where visitors, like the North Carolina teachers, don't just read about the facts, they feel them.
What's incredible about this place is there is no attempt to hide it.
Seeing Majdanek death camp on the outskirts of Lublin, Poland,
You can see over there, Lublin, these are newer buildings, but the city was right there.
is coming to terms with horrifying truths.
If you look at that tower over there, okay, that's a crematorium, and the smoke was coming out, so this is, everybody kind of knew what was going on here.
To this day, Majdanek is largely intact and operates as a state museum. We spent hours exploring the primitive wooden barracks, many of which now house exhibits.
It's an incredibly unnerving and almost scary feeling to learn the facts in person, if you will, the site of where these atrocities took place. It's you're forever changed. You're forever changed.
This exhibit laying out the industry of dehumanization and death.
It wasn't happenstance. It wasn't something that, let's just do this to see if it works. There was a very deliberate, intentional plan that allowed them to carry this out for years. For years. Maps to plan out where and what was going to take place in the camp the way a city planner would plan out a neighborhood.
Inside barracks number 52, we found thousands of old leather shoes that once belonged to prisoners. Men's shoes, women's shoes, children's shoes. The large metal crate stretches far back as the eye can see. A poignant reminder of the people behind the tragedy. We also saw how prisoners forced into labor here lived, from the overcrowded sleeping barracks with rickety bunks stacked to the ceiling, to the bathhouses with shower heads still hanging. And we saw how prisoners here died.
It's difficult to put into words as to how I feel like it has changed me. I know that I am emboldened to go back and share this message with my students, trying to get them to understand and grasp as much as I can about making sure that something like this could never happen again.
It's estimated 78,000 men, women, and children, mostly Jews, died from the systematic evil at Majdanek between 1941 and 1944. Some from starvation and disease, others in here. This is the inside of a gas chamber. The blue residue staining the cement walls is from Zyklon B, the poisonous gas Nazis pumped into the airtight rooms to kill their victims. As teacher after teacher stopped to look inside, the silence was deafening. Maybe it felt disrespectful to talk, or maybe they just didn't know what to say. Outside the cramped building, Majdanek feels huge again. Towers still line the property where guards once kept watch. Everyone we passed brought us closer to the chimney.
It was almost like it got worse and worse and worse the further you went, until you were in the heart of darkness, the crematorium. And there's a mausoleum with a 3-story, pile of ashes. And it was such an intense experience. As we walked back, it was almost like the darkness was receding behind us. We're just heading towards a school bus, but it was almost like we got to walk away from that journey, and there were so many people that didn't get to walk away, that was their final place. That just really hit me hard.
A powerful experience where Piedmont Triad teachers, facing the worst of humanity, renewed their commitment to bring out the best.
And it's all through small actions. It's all through perseverance, that fight to survive, that the victims of the Holocaust and the survivors of the Holocaust, they share their message collectively is a passion for living, and we should, as human beings, have that same passion for one another.
Before the Nazis invaded Poland, Warsaw was the center of Jewish life. It was home to Europe's largest Jewish population and second largest in the world after New York City. What most people know about Jews in the city is from learning about the Warsaw Ghetto, and it's a lesson teachers learned walking in the footsteps of history. Walking through Warsaw, Poland today feels a lot like walking through a large city in the U.S., from the skyscrapers to the traffic. But we quickly realized there are plenty of reminders of a dark past. Some are less obvious, like this outline of the ghetto wall. Others, you can't miss.
So we're at the Umschlag, which is where the trains would come and take people to deport them, typically to Treblinka from Warsaw.
Lindsay Schneider teaches at Reagan High School in Pofftown. We learned more than 300,000 Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto were deported on trains from this exact place during the Holocaust and sent to death camps to be murdered. Today, this memorial, designed to resemble a freight car, names some of those victims.
What do you imagine about these individuals?
So when I think about this, especially as an English teacher, we talk about how powerful individual stories are, that this is something that collectively happened to the Jewish people, to the Poles, and to so many others. But when we remember the individual stories, the people who are friends and sisters and aunts and mothers and daughters, that everyone has a story far beyond just the tragedy that happened to them, and that makes each name really powerful.
The Warsaw Ghetto was the largest in Europe and established in late 1940 after Poland fell to the Nazis. Roughly a third of the city's population was Jewish, about 375,000 people, but the ghetto made up only 2.5% of the city's entire surface area. They faced overcrowding, disease, and starvation. Today, large pieces of what once made up the ghetto wall still stand, and in this particular spot, we saw strands of barbed wire still hanging. A sobering sight for Sonia McTillman of Smith High School in Greensboro.
Is it different seeing it in person? I know you've probably
Very
heard
much
about
so.
it.
It is very, very heart-wrenching to see it in person. You become emotional when you see it. You read about it, you know these things, but there's something about being here that makes it connect with you, and it makes it more impactful in a today, in a right now, in this space kind of way.
An important element of this experience is resistance. Jews weren't just passively dying. That's why Rabbi Gutman takes the teachers here to a portion of what's left of the Warsaw Ghetto Wall with a big emphasis on the Warsaw Ghetto Revolt. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising began April 19, 1943. The Nazis went there that day to deport the remaining survivors to extermination camps and instead faced the largest uprising by Jews during World War II. Members of the underground Jewish Combat Organization were armed with pistols and homemade grenades.
Brothers, our poor town is burning. Raging winds are fanning the wild flames and furiously tearing, destroying and scattering everything. Everything is burning. And you stand by and look on with folded arms. You stand and look passively on while our town is burning. Our town is burning and only you can save it. Extinguish the fire with your very blood if you must. Don't just stand there, brothers, with folded arms. Don't stand, put out the fire. Our little town is burning.
Honestly, you think, how could something like this happen? How could people not fight back? People did fight back. But if you're living on less than 200 calories a day, your ability to fight back is pretty much non-existent. But yet and still, the Jewish people did. They organized, that they worked together to make the best of what they had in order to survive. And obviously they did, because we now know the stories.
At the beginning of the trip, we all received a copy of the week's itinerary so we could plan accordingly for what that day ahead of us would hold. But despite that, some of the experiences we weren't anticipating, and that includes visiting Auschwitz-Birkenau death camp with a second-generation survivor from Orange County. She's a school board member, Bonnie Hauser, who joined the teachers on this once-in-a-lifetime trip. To the dozens of North Carolina public school teachers in our group, being on the grounds of Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp in Poland means coming face to face with a dark part of world history. But to Bonnie Hauser, an Orange County school board member from Hillsborough, it also means facing family history. So tell me what we're looking at.
My family. My mother's family from Greece. These are all the Yom Tovs. And looking at the top is my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, Benika Yom Tov. I'm named after her.
The Book of Names in Block 27 at Auschwitz memorializes the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust. Bonnie's grandmother is one of them. She was killed in the gas chambers at Auschwitz-Birkenau the day she and her 20-year-old daughter, Rebecca Yom Tov Hauser, arrived on a train from Greece in April 1944.
My mother's number was 77128.
Bonnie's mom, Rebecca, was a prisoner here at Auschwitz for nearly a year. While you were standing there, are you picturing your 20-year-old mom?
I was imagining, that's exactly what I was doing. I did get to see where she came in to Auschwitz, you know, and where she was processed, where they shaved her head and you know, she had to get rid of her clothes and go and end up at the barracks.
Rebecca was the only one in her immediate family to survive Auschwitz. Her father and 3 brothers also died here.
My mother would say, the Nazis took enough from me. They can't have any more. She made a decision that she was going to live her life as a survivor, not as a victim. Right? I mean, that was my mother.
A painful part of her mom's life story, one that shaped the wife, mother, and grandmother she would become, but never held her back.
She never quite understood how, I'm sorry, this is like, she never understood how powerful she was. And so now that I see the whole picture, it's like, she is amazing. And now I'm more certain than ever about how strong she was, how resilient she was.
A journey of discovery, walking through the past alongside the very educators who will return home to North Carolina and shape the future.
There's a hope that comes out of this for me, and listening to our teachers and how committed they are to the subject. So that's been really moving to me, the hope that this gives me about the future beyond the Holocaust.